Hey guys. This is part 5 of What If Naruto Faked His Death. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 18. Departing the Snow Leopard Cave. Several days passed and Karen had not yet been able to summon the largest members of the Snow Leopard clans. Despite this, she was thrilled to now be able to summon members of the clan that were more than twice her size that she could ride easily. Overall, she was enjoying her time with the felines. The only downside was that after the second day, Naruto had barely been seen. He had gone out every morning to train in the mountains and wouldn't come back until dinner time, which was the only time she had seen the Jinchuriki. This morning, however, he was leaning against the entrance to her cave waiting for her to arrive. "Good morning," he said happily. Karen jumped in surprise. "Naruto! You scared me half to death." "Oh, sorry about that, I just needed to talk to you," Naruto replied, sheepishly rubbing the back of his neck. "Really? What did you want to talk about? Did you find something out in the mountains?" she asked, a small blush crossing her cheeks. She couldn't help let her imagination run wild at the thought of what her crush wanted. "Well, we've been here for a week now, and I think it's time we should move on. I know you haven't managed to completely master summoning, but you're at a level now where if you are in a bind they can help you out. I've scouted ahead during my time off. We are near the end of the worst of the peaks, but according to the snow leopards that I talked to outside, it appears that once we reach the top there is a really long distance before we start to descend again," Naruto answered. She let out a small sigh. Despite all logic, she had hoped it would be a confession rather than telling her that they were going to be moving on. A plateau at the very top? That's probably not good. It will be nice to get to the top of these peaks, but if they are really that long, it could be even more dangerous with the wind, and the temperature will be even lower as we get higher," Karen answered, trying to play off her disappointment. She was honestly a little scared. A flat area meant that there would be very few, if any, places to take shelter from the harsh weather. "I know it's going to be dangerous. Even the snow leopards don't like going up there. But I promise you that you will be alright. I don't know how I can say that, but it's a promise of a lifetime. And I will do everything that I can to keep this one," Naruto declared, as honestly as he could. "But what about you? What's the point of me getting through this without you?" Karen yelled. "How? What do you mean? You don't need me, do you?" Naruto asked. "Yes, I do. I mean, no, I don't. I don't know. I don't think I can survive out there without someone else. We have no idea what we will find on the other side of this. If there is nothing there, I am as good as dead anyway. You need to live as well," Karen replied. Naruto let out a smile. "It's alright, I can't be killed so easily. Having Kurama in me prevents me from ever being sick for long. It also makes my body immune to the extreme temperatures. So it's nice that you're worrying about me, but I will be fine, honestly. You promise? Promise me that you will survive as well," Karen replied meekly. "I promise, we will both be fine. Now you should grab your stuff. We'll go say goodbye to that old geezer leopard, then we will be on our way," Naruto said. "Well, most of my stuff is still packed, so it won't take me long to get ready. We should take what we can carry of the food that we have been given here. It would be nice to have a few more days of fresh meat," Karen said with a nod. "Do you want some help?" the blonde asked casually. "That would be nice, but I think I can handle it. Come in though, you don't have to wait around out here," Karen answered calmly. They both re-entered the cave, and Karen spent little time racing around picking up the few things she had removed from her traveling bag during their stay. A few clothes were hung up to dry in the corner, which Karen was for the moment at least leaving alone. "By the way, why didn't you tell me we were leaving last night during dinner?" "Well, to be honest, I didn't really think about it leaving until I went to bed. I just realized that I was getting kind of comfortable here, and the longer we stay the harder it will become to leave. So when I woke up this morning I made up my mind, packed up all my equipment, and came down here to see you," Naruto answered honestly. "Oh, don't you think that's a little rushed?" Karen asked. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck with a slight hint of embarrassment. "I guess I didn't think about that. I suppose I was pretty quick to jump to a decision. I probably should have asked you first." "Well, it would have been nice to sit down and talk about our next move, especially when it could be so dangerous out there," the redhead admitted. "I'm sorry. If you want, you can stay. You will be safe here. The snow leopards will protect you," Naruto replied. "No, I want to come with you. The leopards are fine, but I would be happier with having you to keep me company. Besides, someone has to make sure you stay safe as well," she said with a small blush. Naruto blushed to match hers. "Thanks, I like having you around. It's nice to be able to talk to someone else other than Kurama." "Well, you are much better company than Orochimaru's henchmen, and even Sasuke. He didn't talk much, just kind of grunted a lot. Karen admitted, he was like that when he was in Konoha. It's no real surprise he never really changed his whole life. It was always all about revenge for him. If he was a little more open then he could have been saved, there was still good in him. Naruto replied with a sad sigh. Karen saw the look of regret on Naruto's face and felt bad for her new crush. There was nothing you could have done. He chose his path and you chose yours. You can't blame yourself for surviving. You're right. But I was so sure we would have killed each other like the grand old geezer sage and I saw in our vision. But like you said, I can't keep living in the past. I need to move forward. Naruto said with conviction. Then I will be there to help you. I've got all my stuff. Let's just pack up the food and we can go. Karen said with a smile. Meanwhile, we're home. It sure feels good. Kiba sighed with a hint of relief. Our mission was a failure though. Shino pointed out in his usual stoic manner. Actually, as we were never expected to find our target in the first place, the leads we found could be considered to be seen as a success. Sai retorted with a fake smile. We weren't expected to find her? Then why send us out of the village then? Hinata asked a little shocked. It's a common practice. Teams that are approaching a level that would be considered for the Umbu Hunter Ninja squads are given an assignment that would normally be handed by an elite squad and tested upon their results. Sai explained. So this was nothing but a test? Shino gathered. Exactly, and I would say that you will have passed. Actually, I can confirm that as I was the one sent to test you. Sai added. So we were being drafted into Umbu all along? What if we don't want to join? Hinata questioned. Then your 3-man squad will be broken up, unless you all decide against it. However, if you accept, you will be assigned a new squad commander and undergo Umbu-level training. Sai informed the group. Oh, so what about Niji? Is he joining too? Kiba asked. No, he was aware of this from the start. Besides, as you should know by now, he already has an assignment awaiting him should the joint Shinobi alliance become permanent. Sai answered, to which Niji only gave a nod to confirm Sai's story. We still should report our findings to Kakashi-sama. A mission is not finished until we report in. Shino informed the group. They all nodded in agreement, and the tracking team began to move through the village towards the Hokage Tower. Kakashi was having a more than stressful day. Since setting the official date for Naruto's funeral, he had been bombarded with arrivals into Konoha as well as literally hundreds of new requests every day for admittance to Naruto's funeral, as well as outrage when it became clear that they would have to pay for the right to be there. He hadn't even had a chance to read his precious Ika books, and was just about ready to resign from his position. Many of the friends that Naruto had made in the so-called lesser nations were quite rightly furious that they had to pay to farewell someone that they considered to be a hero in their countries. Still, this did not deter many of them. The priestess Cheyenne from Demon Country as well as the daimyo from the Land of Spring had arrived early to voice their disapproval at not receiving the same treatment that was being awarded to the other kages and daimyos from the 5 major nations. Kakashi of course felt bad. He understood their anger. He was giving preferential treatment to those who until very recently were considered threats and treated with hostility, while long-term allies and personal friends of Naruto were overlooked on the basis of earning some money to aid in the recovery of the war effort. The sliver-haired Hokage let out a sigh as the door opened and Shizen entered his office. Hokage-sama, the tracking team that were sent to look for the escaped Akatsuki Kunoichi have returned. Have they found their target? Kakashi asked lazily, already knowing what the answer would be. It does not appear to be the case. It is always possible that they killed her rather than capture. Shizen answered. I doubt that. Send them in. Oh, and could you send a message to Tsunade-sama? She requested to take the mission off their hands. Kakashi said lazily. Tsunade-sama did what? Why would she take on a long-term tracking mission? Shizen asked seriously. Do you really need me to tell you that? Kakashi replied with a sad look in his one exposed eye. She's leaving because of Naruto-kun's death then. I can't believe she is letting herself fall apart like that again. Shizen said bitterly. I do not think it is as straightforward as that. While I agree that she is leaving due to Naruto's death, she has not fallen apart. I believe it is simply a case of her wanting to put an end to the Akatsuki once and for all. It will also be easier for someone like Tsunade-sama to travel around the elemental nations rather than a squad of masked Umbu. Kakashi informed his assistant. Shizen sighed and shook her head. That might be why she has even stayed this long, but she didn't tell me we were going anywhere. That's because you are staying behind. Tsunade is taking the mission on by herself. At the moment it is need to know, not even the elders know that Tsunade will be leaving. If you want more answers I suggest taking it up with her. Regardless, send Sai and the others in. the Hokage said with some finality. Very well, I'll send them in, then I'll send for Tsunade-sama. Shizen said with a bow before leaving the room. The door opened up a few moments later, and in walked the team he had sent out from Konoha in search of Karen along with Sai. Welcome back. I take it you were unable to find your target? Kakashi asked casually. No, there have been no developments from the report. Still, they found quite a few leads and easily passed the requirements to be entered into the Umbu Hunter program. Sai said flatly. Kakashi nodded and reached into his desk to pull out his little orange book. That is to be expected. Now tell me what you found. The next few minutes passed with the Konoha shinobi giving their reports while Kakashi was reading. He would pause every so often to ask a question of comment on Karen's actions in her search for Naruto. This was the scene that Tsunade walked in on. You're reading that, in this office. I should have all the copies burnt, she said with a scowl when she saw the copy of Ika in Kakashi's hands. I was simply reading while we awaited your arrival. Kakashi said as casually as he could manage while he was under Tsunade's harsh glare. He put his book away and turned to face the tracking team. Tsunade-sama is here to relieve you of your mission to locate Karen. All your findings will be passed on to her. The tracking team couldn't believe it. I thought we would be replaced by an Umbu squad. Kiba barked in shock. What, you think I am not good enough? I think you should send this one back to the academy rather than to Umbu. I don't think he passes the intelligence test. Not even Naruto would be dumb enough to question the abilities of a former Hokage. Tsunade said with a smirk. She has a point, Kiba. Kakashi added. Kiba immediately paled and decided to do the one thing he had left, plead for forgiveness. I'm sorry, Tsunade-sama. Of course you will be able to do the job. I was simply questioning why you would take on such a menial task when you are capable of completing far more challenging missions. Well, at least he has groveling down to an art form. The busted former Hokage noted. Anyway, what do you lot have for me to go on? I will be leaving the day after Naruto's funeral to try and find a trail. We lost a definite trail when we arrived at the site of Naruto's fight with Sasuke. There had been so many people go through the area, finding her trail was nearly impossible. Niji answered formally. A problem that will not occur once the others are given formal training. The advanced tracking then, even in hopeless situations like the one you faced where the trail would have been cold for months, will be found. Is there anything else? Kakashi remarked. Yes, although I am not sure if it is relevant. Hinata said meekly, producing the small torn piece of fabric from Naruto's jumpsuit. I found this a fair way to the northeast of where Naruto-kun was found. There were no signs of fighting there, but I am sure Naruto-kun was there. If Karen was following Naruto-kun's tracks, then there is a chance that she may have been in the area too. That might be a decent place to start the search, she added with growing confidence. Tsunade's eyes widened slightly. While it may or may not give a lead onto Karen's whereabouts, it was damn sure a clue in tracking down Naruto. I agree. I would like a map with the location marked before I go. For now, why don't you all go have a few days off before the funeral? I think you have earned them. Don't you agree, Kakashi? Yes, I think that would be a good idea. Take the rest of the week off. Report back here the day after the funeral with your decisions in regards to joining the Hunter Ninja, Kakashi said with a nice smile. Meanwhile, Naruto and Karen were once more walking towards the large stone house where the snow leopard elder lived. Nemeo was lounging on the steps as they arrived, and if he was in any way surprised to see them, he didn't show it. Elder-sama has been expecting you, the cat said lazily as they came within earshot. His eyes were closed and Naruto was surprised the large leopard was even awake. He knew we were coming to see him now. Karen asked, rather surprised. He's a seer, he's probably known when we would leave before we did, Naruto replied. The resting Nemeo allowed a small smirk to cross his face. Quite right, Naruto. He knew you were leaving today several days ago and asked me to be here to allow you both entrance to see him. So please don't let my presence distract you. Enter at will. Unlike the last time they were there, the hall was well lit as they entered, and the ancient elder snow leopard was already resting on his pedestal. I swear these guys do nothing but rest in the most comfortable places they can find, Naruto thought. Well, it's not like they have much else to do. Why not find someplace comfortable and relax? Kurama questioned. I guess you have a point. Even I would get sick of training after a while if there was nothing to test my strength against. Good thing I have you for that, the blonde thought back with a smile. If you say so, you're still millennia away from beating me without Sage Mode or my chakra. The large fox scoffed in reply. Naruto didn't bother to answer the Kyuubi as they had arrived in front of the snow leopard elder, who had raised his head in acknowledgement of their arrival. Yo, old guy. You already know why we are here, I guess, Naruto said with a friendly wave. That's right, you will be leaving us today, and it will be quite some time before I will see either of you again. The elder feline said sagely. So you already know if we will survive the mountains? Karen asked. There are many outcomes that I have foreseen, even if I had an answer for you, by telling you it could effectively change the future. That is one of the curses of sight. Time is in constant flux, so what information I give cannot be seen as to be infallible. Naruto, you know this all too well, I am sure. The elder said. You mean the fact that I didn't die fighting Sasuke? The blonde questioned. The ancient-looking leopard nodded in agreement. Precisely, if you had no knowledge of a perceived view of the future, you would not be standing here now. You would be home in your village, instead you are here with Karen-chan. So because Naruto was told an outcome, his choice changed when things didn't happen as he was told. Karen surmised. Yes, if I was to tell you that you would survive the dangerous journey that lay ahead, you would become less careful and the future could change. Similarly, if I said you would die, then it would be possible that you would not leave and your path would stagnate. The elder added. Well, I have to say you are just as frustrating as the grand old geezer Toad, even if you don't forget everything 5 minutes after you say it. I guess that what you are saying makes sense. If I had no knowledge of the prophecy, I know that wouldn't have faked my death. Naruto replied. So we have to go in blind then. I can't be all that disappointed. I never had anyone who could tell me the future before. Karen sighed. The elder let out a laugh. I am afraid that I can no longer understand that particular way of life. However, I will admit that I will miss these rather informal meetings. The other members of my clan only ever call me Elder-sama and talk like I am all-knowing. Really, it's a relief to be able to talk freely with someone for a change. Well, we have to thank you for your hospitality and feeding us, not to mention the fact that you let me sign your summoning contract. Karen said with a bow. Think nothing of it. We have been waiting an age for a summoner to arrive. You still have much to learn about being a summoner, but in time I am sure you will make us proud. But I guess all that there is to do now is bid you both farewell. The elder said. Yeah, it's been fun. You leopards are awesome, but we really should keep moving. I just wanted to say goodbye before we left. Naruto said happily. The old leopard sage smiled warmly at the pair. You are a good man, my young sage. Do not let that change. I will be following your progress. Keep safe, both of you. Don't worry, I'll make sure nothing happens to us. Naruto said with a confident fox-like smile. Come on, Karen. I found an area on my second day of scouting that would be the perfect place for us to set up camp for the night. But we need to hurry or else we won't get there on time. Alright, let's go. Karen agreed. As Naruto moved to leave, she stayed behind for a moment, bowed once more to the snow leopard elder before following Naruto out the door. They left the cave without incident. Upon returning to the surface, Karen had to squint to help readjust to the glare coming from the snow. It was a beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky, much to her pleasure. The next thing she notices was the cold wind stinging her cheeks. It almost felt like tiny needles. It's a bit of a shock when you come up from the warmth of that cave, but it gets better once you get used to the cold again. Naruto said with a reassuring smile. Karen smiled back, her cheeks tinted pink from a mixture of the blush that was quickly spreading as well as the cold wind. All right. Lead the way and I'll follow. Konoha. Several days later. The days passed slowly for Kakashi. New arrivals meant that he was in his office all the time. At least this will be over after tomorrow, he thought with a sigh. Wishing you never took the job? Came Tsunade's voice from the door. She had been helping Kakashi deal with the sudden influx of people into the village as well as taking care of the other Kages as they arrived, making sure they were comfortable. More and more each day. How are the other Kages doing? Kakashi replied wearily. As always, they each have a set of unreasonable demands that are being taken care of as we speak. Gaara is as always asking for nothing, but it is rather difficult satisfying the Mizuki's dietary demands. Tsunade said while taking a seat. Kakashi nodded and leaned back in his chair. He was starting to see why Hiruzen smoked and Tsunade drank. There was no way you could put up with the stress of this job without something to help you cope. And the new Tsuchikage hasn't shown up yet. I hope he arrives before tonight. I was hoping to organize a meeting to discuss the alliance before the funeral tomorrow. They are expected to arrive sometime later this morning. Tsunade informed the copycat Hokage. Good, it's imperative that these talks go smoothly. I know that the others are just as keen to see this alliance made permanent, but IWA could still hold out. If they do, we will see a power vacuum. IWA will have to militarize to oppose 4 major villages, which will inevitably lead to another war. Obito was wrong about so many things, but in that sense he was right. If we do not all unite, then the world is doomed to yet another war. Kakashi sighed. All times of peace come to an end eventually, Kakashi. It's what we do with our time of peace that matters in this world. This ninja world has never seen more than 10 years without a major conflict in one area or another. But every time that a new age of peace comes, we must be hopeful that it will be a long one. Tsunade spoke sagely. You sound more like Jiraiya-sama there than yourself. I don't suppose you want to take up writing? I could use some new literature. Kakashi said with an eye smile. I will never write that smut you call literature. You need your head examined if you think that I will. Tsunade scoffed. Kakashi let out a chuckle along with one of his patented eye smiles. Well, it's just you talking about peace and going out on journey for an unknown amount of time. That's Jiraiya-sama all over. Yeah, well, unlike that pervert, my journey has a purpose. He just traveled the world to perv on women under the guise of being a spy. Tsunade said flatly. Well, you do have a point there, but you have to admit his rather unique style did lead to him being able to avoid detection when necessary. Kakashi retorted. Tsunade nodded in agreement. That is true, nobody could hide better than that fool. An impressive task when you considered what he wore and how tall he was. When I first met Naruto, I was half convinced he wore that jumpsuit for the same reason. I mean, he did manage to paint the Hokage monument while wearing it. Kakashi agreed. Those two are more alike than even they were willing to admit. Any more alike and we would have to face Kushina when we pass on. The busted blonde chuckled. Kakashi shivered in thought. He had great respect for Kushina, but when she was mad, nothing would be able to stop her. All you could do was close your eyes and hope that you were not the source of her ire. As he was about to respond, the door opened and Shizen entered the room. Hokage-sama, the delegation from IWA has arrived at the front gate. A guide has been sent to show them to their accommodation. So the last of the 5 Kages have arrived. Invite them all to dinner tonight. An informal greeting before our more important talks will proceed will help everyone relax. Kakashi said. He was quite relieved. Now that the Tsuchikage had arrived, the last of the guests for the funeral were accounted for. Konoha was set to make a healthy profit from the sales of seats to the public, with only the 5 Kage, village elders and Naruto's closest friends being given free entry. I'm quite glad this week is almost over, to be honest. Things will still be hectic after this, you realize. A new alliance requires a lot of hard work to maintain. That is the life of a Hokage. You must constantly work for the good of the village while giving up your own freedoms. This is part of your life now. Tsunade lectured. I don't suppose that there are any decent candidates for the Nanadame Hokage? Kakashi asked reluctantly. Tsunade laughed at Kakashi's hopeless expression. Well, I can't think of any, at least none that will be easy to locate. I do hope you are not encouraging Kakashi-sama to have the shortest reign as Hokage, Tsunade-sama. Shizen said with a disapproving tone. Not at all, I am simply stating fact, that at the moment only Kakashi has the qualifications to be Hokage, and I cannot see that changing in the foreseeable future. Tsunade replied. Yourself exclude, but I have already given up hope on asking you to reclaim the title. Kakashi said honestly. Quite right, I have something more important to take care of. I can't be babysitting Konoha. Meanwhile, it's quite a sight, isn't it? Naruto said with a hint of awe in his voice. It sure is. Karen replied. The pair stood at the top of the peaks looking out over an endless expanse of flat snow. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, leaving the pair an unobstructed view over the horizon. The land was so flat it felt like they could see the curve of the earth in front of them. Looking back, they could see various peaks sticking up across the horizon of the path they had taken on their journey. We've come so far. She gaped. It's not over yet, we still have a long way to go. But we can move a lot faster on this flat surface. So let's not waste any time, a new world is awaiting us on the other side. I can't wait to see what it's going to be like. Naruto cheered and in typical hyperactive fashion took off at a sprint. Hey, wait up, don't leave me behind. Karen called after the blonde as she gave chase. Chapter 19, Naruto's Funeral. Konoha was filled to the brim. On the final night before Naruto's funeral, the center of the village was currently being transformed for a large celebration after the event, and the area behind the Hokage monument now was the location where they would hold the funeral. Konoha itself was alight with color. Orange and black banners stood on every corner, the orange due to Naruto's ever-definable jumpsuit and the black for mourning. There were festive lights hanging through the main areas of town that were available to tourists and those visiting from other shinobi villages. Even sections of Konoha's famous forests were lit to celebrate the life of the young man who won the war and saved more lives than anyone could count. While most in the village were still getting over the war, celebrating the victory and mourning the dead, the leaders of many villages and nations were being treated to a feast by the Hokage and village elders. Only the most important guests were invited. The room was already full when the Hokage along with Tsunade and the Konoha village elders entered. Several had found their seats at the table while others were standing, talking animatedly with guests. Welcome everyone, I trust that you all have found Konoha to be accommodating during your stay so far. This is the first time that we have had so many village leaders in the one room, which gives us a unique opportunity. With the defeat of the Akatsuki, there is hope once more for sustained peace without the need for constant vigilance on our neighbors, Kakashi said as a greeting. Kakashi took a seat at the head of the table, flanked by Tsunade on one side and the village elders on the other. Several sections of the room clapped approvingly while a few others were less than impressed. If you really wanted peace so badly, you wouldn't have charged us an entry fee just to farewell a hero in our nation. A member of the delegation from the land of Spring scoffed. Maybe if you had joined the alliance and offered us assistance during the war, then you wouldn't have to pay at all. You let our men fight and die for you without even lifting a finger. A balding man who sat beside the newly elected Tsuchikage Katsuchi said boldly, "We are under no agreement to fight your wars. If the 5 great nations go to war, why should you expect us to donate our men? We have far less resources and shinobi than any of you." A kunoichi from the land of stars replied, "This war was not fought over land or resources. This war was fought for the good of the whole world, yet you decided to let us fight alone in hopes that we would win but be so badly crippled that your villages could take our place. In my day, that was grounds for war in itself." A tall man in sea green robes with an eye patch declared. Next to him sat a beautiful woman dressed in all blue with long auburn hair. The Mizukage smiled at her bodyguard with the same sweet innocence that she saved for only those people that had angered her in some way. She leaned over to him so she could whisper into his ear, "Oh, shut up or I will kill you." The color instantly drained from the Kiri shinobi's face. "I can understand your frustration. Konoha has allowed members from the 5 great nations, including myself, to come here and mourn the loss of Naruto-kun for free due to peace talks between our nations, while many of you who knew him better than we did were forced to pay. I am sure Kakashi Dano's purpose for doing so is due to the fact that Konoha has just recently been rebuilt, an expensive task meaning Konoha will owe a fair amount of ryo to their daimyo. This is a chance for them to recover some of that lost funding. I am also aware that despite the need to pay for entrance, they have been forced to turn a great number of people down due to a lack of room. If they didn't charge entrance, or have a set number of people that could attend the ceremony, then it is likely that the village would not be able to cope with the influx of people, and you would have far more complaints than those that you have at the moment." Mei added diplomatically. Many in the room were impressed at her ability to defuse a potentially hostile situation. At least those that had not attended any of the Kage meetings were. "Thank you, Maidano. I can assure all of you that it was with a heavy heart that we decided that it was necessary to charge the fee for you to come here for Naruto's funeral. The war has been hard on all of us. We all lost many good shinobi, and this funeral is much for all of them as it is for Naruto." Kakashi replied, "I think this discussion should wait until our official meetings regarding an alliance. Tonight is about welcoming so many important people to Konoha. It is an honor to have you all here, even if it is for a less than happy occasion." Tsunade said with a smile. "She's right, yo, the slug queen's real bright." A tall, highly tanned man in full raikage robes said in rap form. At his side sat 2 highly embarrassed-looking bodyguards. "Bisama, please, I asked you not to rap while you're here." A rather stoic-looking blonde woman replied. "Did you really think you would, Samui?" This was why A-sama never let Bisama into any meetings with other nations. The other bodyguard said. He was a man with pure white spiky hair that emphasized his tan skin. "It's fine, Samui-chan, this is a party, you dig. Darui, no need to bring my bro into this, relax and go with the flow." Be rapped happily, clearly not taking any notice of the odd looks many were giving the rather eccentric new raikage. "Bidano, I was wondering, does the Hachibi know if the other Bijuu will be revived? If not, what is the time scale that we will be looking at for the return of the Kyubi?" Gaara asked in his passive manner. Many people at the table were interested in this. For many reasons, a Bijuu signified power. Any nation that got their hands on one would have significant pull over other nations. The Reikage paused. Internally he was talking with his Bijuu. "I can't say, the other Bijuu became the Jubiyo, so they might be gone for good, but there is still hope, although the chances are remote." He rapped back eventually. Per rapping aside, he caught the attention of the others in the room. "What hope is that? You think they could still come back?" Koharu asked intently. Despite knowing they were heading towards a new alliance with the 5 great nations, she was still a Konoha elder, and interested in the safety and power of her home village. Naruto had power from all the Bijuu. That power might bring them back, but how long? "I'm in the black. Kurama's Jinchuriki has never been killed while he was inside, so when he comes back it will be a wild ride." The Hachibi Jinchuriki answered. "But it was only a small amount of their chakra. Would that be enough to revive them?" "Even if it was, it wouldn't take longer than we have on record." Kitsuchi asked. That seems logical. The Bijuu were nothing but masses of chakra that came from nature, so it's possible that if enough time passes they will reform. It may not be within our lifetime though. The Kyuubi should return, but the question is what do we do when it does? Naruto befriended the Bijuu. I doubt that the Kyuubi would cause us any harm because of that. All sealing it again would do is renew its hatred towards shinobi. Gaara reasoned. Leaving that fox roam is dangerous. What if someone tries to use it against us like the Akatsuki did? The beast might tolerate Konoha and the other 4 great villages, but we don't want a free Bijuu terrorizing our countries. The leader of Taki said cautiously. I don't see that being an issue for Taki. Your country has natural protection from the outside. I doubt that even the Kyuubi could get in if it wanted to. You did have a Jinchuriki that you mistreated, perhaps it will want revenge? Kitsuchi replied with a scoffed laugh. You can't talk. IWA disliked their Jinchuriki so much they were kept outside of the village. I hear your father didn't even try to recover them when captured. The man from Taki replied angrily. Kitsuchi nodded in acceptance. You are right. All of our villages are guilty of at one time mistreating our Jinchuriki, even Konoha. It's ironic that one is now the biggest hero the elemental nations have ever seen. Perspectives change as I am sure they have in all of our villages. Now if someone became a Jinchuriki I am sure they would see it as a great honor. As for the situation regarding the fox, perhaps it would be best to try and establish a positive relationship with the Bijuu once it reforms. It takes years to train a Jinchuriki, but if there was a way we could befriend the Bijuu you could have an effective ally without the need to confine the Kyuubi. He said, that seems like an interesting proposal. Do you think it is something that could be repeated with the other Bijuu if they reform in this world? Gaara asked. He had serious reservations about the stability of his former prisoner. Shikaku the Ichibi was the most unstable of all the Bijuu from what he had heard and was rather insane. It might, if the other Bijuu support the idea. It has to be better than being sealed away in any case. Mei guessed. While this discussion was going on, Kakashi and Tsunade remained silent. The conversation on hypotheticals was an impossibility because the Kyuubi had no need to reform as its host was not dead. One thing did interest the 2 Konoha ninja though. What would have happened to the other Bijuu's chakra if Naruto hadn't died? Tsunade eventually asked, unable to contain her intrigue. Everyone instantly looked through the wreckage for an answer. He hummed as he asked his Bijuu. I don't know, it's impossible to tell yo. That is an interesting thought. Naruto contained chakra from most if not all of the Bijuu. If they reformed again would they have become part of him? Or simply reformed out in the real world? It's really a shame that we will never know. Gaara sighed. A Jinchuriki from multiple Bijuu, is that even physically possible? You need to be unique in order to become a Jinchuriki at all. For someone to hold multiple Bijuu doesn't seem possible. The leader of Taki asked. Naruto was an Uzumaki, one of the few clans who are all capable of becoming Jinchuriki thanks to their uniquely strong vitality. It would not be much of a stretch to think that one could contain multiple Bijuu, especially when they already have chakra levels as high as Naruto's. His mother was chosen as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki before him for the same reason that he was. They are the perfect containers. That's why we gave the Kyuubi to the Uzumaki clan who were not from Konoha at all. Tsunade informed the room. It's true, Kumo attempted to kidnap the former Kyuubi Jinchuriki, Kushina Uzumaki, because of her unique chakra chains that could suppress a Bijuu. Although it is unclear if they knew she was a Jinchuriki at the time. Even before her there was Mito Uzumaki who was able to seal the Kyuubi, becoming the first Jinchuriki of one of the 9 Bijuu. Mei said in agreement. You're well informed on our history, Meidano. Hamura said a little coldly. The Kyuubi's previous Jinchuriki were supposed to be well-kept secrets. I've done my research. The Mizukage replied with a sweet smile. Their conversation was forgotten moments later when waiters appeared carrying the first course of the dinner. All the tension faded and small conversations broke out between the various village dignitaries. Meanwhile, a very different dinner was taking place high in the mountainous peaks above the elemental nations. 2 shinobi were huddled around a small heater while blisteringly cold winds bombarded their tent. I am seriously regretting not staying with the snow leopards, Karen stuttered, the condensation from her breath steaming the air due to the cold. Yes, so am I. Naruto replied with a short laugh. He may not be able to be killed by the cold, but he sure as hell still felt it. Can't we use another heater? It's too cold with just one. It doesn't matter how long we try and heat our food if it's so cold that it will freeze instantly. Karen said pleadingly. I really want to, but we don't know how far we have to go like this. If we use up the heaters too soon then you really will freeze. We need to ration them out. Things will get worse before they get better. Naruto reasoned. I know you're right, but it's hard to think that way when I can't get warm at all. The redhead sighed. wrapping herself tighter into a ball to try and conserve body heat. All I can do is turn this heater up to full power. I've been trying to conserve it as much as possible. At least the sleeping bag should be warm. Naruto replied, trying to keep his partner's spirits up. After a few more minutes they began to eat some warm instant ramen, the thin air and low pressure causing the water to boil at lower temperatures, preventing the food from being heated properly. They ate for the most part in silence, focusing on their food. It may not have been as hot as either would like, but compared to the sub-zero temperatures outside and in the tent, it helped warm their whole body. Once she had finished, Karen placed the bowl off to the side to be cleaned. "Hey Naruto, when you left Konoha, was there someone that you liked?" she asked as casually as she could. "I liked everyone in Konoha, they were my family and comrades," Naruto replied, clearly oblivious to the real line of questioning. Karen almost face-palmed at the blonde's denseness. "No, I mean like a girl that you really liked, you know, a crush, or a girlfriend?" Naruto paused. His initial thought was to say that yes, he had a crush on Sakura, but somehow he just couldn't. He had no real reason why, but when he thought about the pinkette now, he did not feel any attraction. Sure, he still cared for his former teammate, but there was certainly nothing romantic about how he felt. Maybe it was because they grew apart. Or maybe Naruto knew from the moment she had lied and attempted to confess to him that he realized that there was really nothing there. His next mind then went to Hinata. His world had not settled down since his fight with Pain. It had just been one mission after another. The truth was, he didn't know all that much about the shy Hyuga, but he did know that she had loved him with all her heart. The more he thought about it, the more he regretted not getting to know Hinata better. If he had, then he was sure that she would have been someone that he could love back. However, no, I didn't have a girlfriend. For a while there was a girl I had a crush on, but I got over that," the blonde said. "Did you ever like anyone other than Sasuke?" "Well, I didn't really meet many people other than Sasuke-kun, so I guess he was my only crush up till now," Karen admitted. "I don't get it," Naruto stated suddenly. "Get what? What is it that everyone saw in Sasuke? He was about as interesting to talk to as an old sock, yet almost all the girls in Konoha chased after him like he was the second coming of the Rikudo Sennin, or something. It used to make me so angry. I mean, we were both orphans, yet everyone loved Sasuke while pretending I didn't even exist. Looking back, I don't know what I saw in Sasuke-kun. If I was to guess, I would say it's because saved me in the Forest of Death, back when he was a Konoha shinobi. It was during the Chunin exams. Nobody had ever cared if I lived or died before. I guess he became my savior, and because of that I couldn't see all of his faults. But it's rather ironic. The boy who was loved by the people became an enemy, while the boy who was hated and discarded became their greatest hero," Karen replied. "Sasuke made too many wrong choices in his life. I remember Kakashi-sensei once telling me that I reminded him of Obito when he was a genin, while Sasuke was a lot like he was. If that's true, would that mean if I had been faced with the same hardships that I would have become like he did? I don't know what it is like to lose a family like Sasuke did, because I never had a family to begin with. But Kakashi-sensei did. He lost his dad when he was around the same age as Sasuke, but they turned out so different in the end." Naruto sighed. "I don't think you would ever turn out like that masked man did. Your chakra is too bright and colorful to ever become as dark and twisted as his did. There is no way that anything could change that. You were able to cope with being a Jinchuriki. Tobi, or should I say Obito, couldn't cope with hardship. He gave up," Karen replied. Naruto sighed and fell onto his back, his head hitting his sleeping bag. "I really hope you are right. I don't want to think that I would ever turn out like Obito did. Anyway, this is still kind of depressing to talk about." "You're right, it's not really a happy topic. So let's talk about something else. Like, what are we going to do when we get over these mountains? Right now I don't care what we find as long as it's warm," Karen said with a small laugh at the end. "Yeah, after this I want to find a nice village by the seaside where I can lay back and relax for a while, like a holiday," Naruto replied wistfully. Karen smiled at the thought of sitting on a beach with Naruto in a small quiet town. "A holiday from what exactly? We don't have jobs anymore. We don't even know if they will have ninja. I guess when you have the type of skills we have, it can't be all that difficult to find work. You would be perfect if anyone wanted some destruction work. Maybe we could start up a business together, helping people who are in need." "Yeah, that sounds nice. We could even train others to help out, even start a new ninja village. It won't be Konoha, but it would be a place where we could make a difference," Naruto said enthusiastically. "Settle down, we're not there yet, but I think that would be a wonderful idea," the red-haired Uzumaki replied. "If we do start a business, a village together, that means we want separate after we're over these mountains. Maybe I have a better chance of getting him to notice me than I thought." I know it's just that since I decided to go on the run I have just been walking on without a real plan. I feel like I have a purpose again now. Since I gave up my dream to be Hokage, starting a new shinobi village is the next best thing," Naruto said. He was already picturing a new place for him in the world. "It's good to be focused, Naruto, but it's like she said, there is no way of telling whether or not they have ninja in this new continent. There may be no need for you to start a village because there will be others willing to take you in or oppose you setting up in their territory," Kurama reasoned. "I know, but I can live with that. I can at least still be a ninja if I join another village." Naruto thought back in response. "True, but just because they are willing to accept you does not make them worthy of trust or loyalty. Many people joined that snake Sannin Orochimaru because he was willing to accept them. All they got for their loyalty was becoming guinea pigs in his experiments. Don't trust people so unconditionally, you won't like where it will lead," Kurama retorted. "I know, I'll be careful, thanks Kurama," Naruto replied kindly. Thanks to the cold, it didn't take long for Naruto and Karen to retreat into their sleeping bags to keep warm. They lay awake for a few hours talking, the heater placed between them. This was the first night of what would be a very difficult few days. The next day, the sun rose early in Konoha. There was not a cloud in the sky. It seemed as if the heavens were mocking what was supposed to be a sad day, because they knew the truth. Even early in the morning there were people filing up to the site behind the Hokage monument where the funeral would be held. It was a field of black with everyone wearing mourning clothes. It wasn't until around noon that Kakashi and the other Kage arrived on a small stage where an open coffin containing the fake Naruto rested above the future grave site. As Kakashi and the other Kage arrived, the crowd fell silent. Kakashi moved to the front of the stage where a small podium had been placed while the other Kage took a seat on the stage along with Tsunade and the Konoha village elders. Despite the formal occasion, Kakashi still wore his face mask and tilted forehead protector to cover his Sharingan. "I first met Naruto when he was assigned to me as a potential genin. I had seen him around the village before that time, of course, but like most of the people of Konoha here today, I had my own opinions of what he would be like. A troublemaker, a loudmouth, brash and unpredictable. He was all of those things, but the brat that used to terrorize the shopping district with his pranks was not the real Naruto Uzumaki. He was a boy that, despite everything that he had gone through, loved this village and the people in it, even if they didn't love him. The audience, particularly those from Konoha, were silent. They knew exactly what their Hokage was talking about. They had been the cause of his pain as a child. In a small section of the front row, the members of the now known Konoha 12 minus the obvious two exclusions sat together. "He was rather troublesome when we were in the academy," Shikamaru sighed with a calm smile that adequately hid his sorrow. "When did that ever change?" Kiba replied. "I guess it never did," the lazy genius admitted fondly. Back on the stage, Kakashi's speech was continuing. Naruto was not the most talented shinobi, but he had a drive and determination that was unmatched. If he was given a task that he wanted to accomplish, then he would do it no matter how difficult it was. I am ashamed to say that I didn't realize that. It took a much better man than I am to see his true potential, Jiraiya-sama, who was able to teach Naruto more than I ever did in just over a month. The time came where I was replaced as his sensei, and rightfully so. I am many things, but I was never a good sensei. But even if he hadn't been taken on as Jiraiya-sama's apprentice, Naruto would still have gone on to accomplish great things. That was just the strength of his character. Nothing could defeat him, and he would always come back to try again, even harder than before. Kakashi continued to talk for several more minutes. He mentioned their first mission outside the village, the second bell test where he and Sakura managed to get the bells. Every so often he would add a small joke to try and lift the somber mood. Kakashi didn't like being so formal as it made him uncomfortable, but it was worse knowing that while he was here giving a eulogy for someone that was alive and well. The overflow of emotion in the crowd was the hardest part. Ninja were not supposed to cry at a funeral as it disrespects the sacrifice. You are supposed to remain stoic as a sign of respect. The problem was many of those that had come to the funeral were not shinobi. Sobbing could be heard in parts, while even some of the shinobi had tears in their eyes, cursing that it had not been raining. Once Kakashi was finished, he placed a flower in the coffin and took his seat. Tsunade stood up and took Kakashi's place. She talked about how she had met an obnoxious blonde-haired brat that pushed her buttons so much she wanted to squash him like a bug, and how that same boy made her love Konoha once more and convince her to become Hokage. Once she was finished, she too added a flower to the one that Kakashi had placed in the coffin. After Tsunade had finished, they invited Sakura to speak, but she declined. Instead, Gaara stood up from his seat and walked forward. "Naruto Uzumaki was the greatest man I ever met. I am honored to know that he considered me a friend. I do not speak these words lightly. He saved my life many times over and even to this day is one of only 2 men that have defeated me in a fight. I always wanted to be able to fight him again, return the favor if you will, but sadly I will never get that chance. What separated Naruto was the fact that he cared. Even if it was an enemy hell-bent on killing him, he would try and save them. Because of him Konoha and Suna will continue to have a strong bond of friendship for as long as I live. I am not here to honor a hero. I am here to say goodbye to the best friend that I could ever ask for, the Kazekage said in his usual stoic manner. Sand drifted slowly out of Gaara's gourd and traveled to rest inside Naruto's coffin. Gaara bowed to the audience and walked back to his seat. The other Kage didn't have much to say. The longest to eulogize was B, but even then it didn't last long due to the fact the Kumo elders ordered him not to rap during any official situation where he was representing the village. Each Kage did as the last and placed a flower on the grave. May placed 2 gold coins over his eyelids along with the flower as a ritual from the land of water. And when the last of the Kages had finished they allowed all the guests to do the same. One by one shinobi and civilian alike would walk over to the coffin and throw in a flower. Some paused for a few moments to say a few private words of parting before moving on. It took close to an hour for everyone to have their small moment of time, and when it was over Naruto's body was almost completely covered, with only his head still exposed looking as if he was simply asleep. Everyone gathered around respectfully as the coffin was lowered into the ground. There were noticeably more tears now, with only the strongest-willed of shinobi keeping a calm face. The surviving members of the Konoha 12 buried their comrade and Kakashi placed a simple headstone that had the symbol for the Uzumaki clan next to the Konoha leaf symbol. Above it had his name, and nothing else. It was a sign of respect that they didn't have to say anything. His feats would be forever remembered, which is why they gave him a private burial spot in the place reserved for the Hokages who he admired so much. Everyone stood in silent reverie around the grave. It was like everyone was caught in a time warp. Nothing moved except the sun in the sky. Eventually, and very slowly, the guests began to disperse. The village had been set up for a celebration and party once the funeral had ended. Most just saw it as a good chance to get drunk and farewell Naruto properly. Meanwhile, achoo! Naruto sneezed for what felt like the 1000th time that day. Hey, I hope you're not getting sick. We have to share a tent. Karen yelled ever so slightly, keeping her distance as the pair walked as quickly as they could through the thick snow of the mountainous plateau. No, I'm fine. There must be just someone talking about me. Naruto replied cheerfully, or at least as cheerfully as he could manage in the cold. The snow was knee-deep, which was preventing them from moving at any great speed, and everything just looked the same. It was white as far as he could see in any direction. He couldn't even tell how far they had traveled anymore with no mountainous landmarks to guide them. This meant that every so often he would have to take out a compass to check that they were still heading in the right direction. We just need to keep moving. Things will get better, I just know they will. Chapter 20: Ice and Snow. It had been 2 weeks since Naruto's so-called funeral. Most of the guests had left Konoha and the village was returning, for the most part, back to normal. There was still a large group of foreign shinobi left in Konoha. The group included the Kages from the other villages. The peace talks had been apparently going rather smoothly, with each side willing to participate in exchanges of skills and resources. Now it was only the finer details that were left to iron out. Despite this, there was one extremely unhappy person within Konoha. Tsunade had been asked to put her search for Naruto on hold by Kakashi until after the meetings, his reasoning being that she would be helpful in peace discussions, and if she waited until after everything was sorted they could get official permission from the other Kages to have Tsunade enter their countries to search for him discreetly under the guise of searching for the final Akatsuki member. You said I could leave after the funeral. It's been 2 weeks. Every moment I sit around here that damn Gaki could be moving further away. Tsunade raged. Kakashi sat across from her at his desk while the morning sun sat low in the sky, the first light of the day just spreading over the village. We have been over this, Tsunade. You know as well as I do just how vital this alliance will be. Your presence here is necessary for the talks to go smoothly. With any luck they should be over today. All that is left to decide is a time limit for the rotation of the Kage who is in charge of the alliance, and who will be the first leader. He replied calmly. And if it's not all dealt with today? She asked skeptically. Then you can go. There is no point in holding off any longer. But I wouldn't worry. There is really only one logical choice for the first commander, and I plan on putting their name forward this morning. With any luck we will be done by lunchtime. Kakashi said confidently. Then we better get to work then. I am sure the other villages will be missing their Kages after all this time. I am surprised they all willingly chose to stay here until the talks had finished. Tsunade mused, opening the door and waiting for the copy ninja. She knew that Hokage or not, If someone didn't keep on his case, he would be several hours late regardless of how important the meeting was. The chill of an early winter was beginning to set in over the land of fire, so the cold breeze gave both shinobi pause for a few moments, as they adjusted from the warmth of the Hokage Tower. Fortunately, they did not have far to walk to the council chambers where they were holding the talks. Looks like it's going to be a long winter this year. I hope wherever Naruto has run off to it's warm, Tsunade said with a small shiver. Meanwhile, despite Tsunade's hopes, Naruto was not somewhere warm. In fact, he was somewhere incredibly cold. 2 weeks of traveling in sub-zero temperatures were beginning to take their toll on the duo both mentally and physically. While Naruto couldn't freeze, he still felt the cold significantly. Despite this, he still prioritized keeping Karen as warm as possible, always placing the heater much closer to the kunoichi than himself. This morning was somehow even colder. The common helping of snow that would cake itself on their tent was significantly thicker, and Naruto's breath seemed to freeze in the air. "Morning, how are you feeling?" he asked. Karen was shivering in her sleeping bag but was still alive. "I'm fine, but I don't know how much longer I can deal with this. We're running low on supplies and only have enough heaters left for 2 weeks at the most." "Hey, don't give up, we will make it through. But we need to start making better time each day. I'll summon a clone to scout ahead and map out our course. We can use the markers that came with the survival packs I brought before we left. Then I'll summon another clone to carry your bags. We should be able to cover twice the distance in one day. I'll send my first clone out now so we can stay here for a few moments to keep warm, then we better get moving," Naruto said calmly. Naruto created a clone and handed over some markers to map out a path. Being a clone, it could travel quickly through the snow without worry of misplacing his footing and falling hundreds of miles down a crevasse. Also, Karen was moving less than freely due to the cold. Having a path they can follow would be far easier for them. "It's been almost an hour since the clone left. We should move out now," Naruto sighed, pulling on his thick jacket while still in the relative warmth of his sleeping bag. Karen groaned in protest but did the same out of necessity. It was impossible for Naruto and Karen to get used to the feel of the ice and wind slamming against their face as they left the tent. The wind felt like tiny needles were piercing their skin, causing them both to do their best to hide their faces, both having made thick masks not unlike the one Kakashi wore to keep most of the face protected. A quick glimpse north indicated the first bright orange marker, sticking out from the flat plateau like a sore thumb. It was a good distance away, but easily noticeable against all the snow. "I guess it's this way then," Karen said, handing her pack over to a shadow clone. She felt a lot lighter, but her trepidation remained. They had no idea how much longer they would be traveling like this and finite resources. "Yeah, seems like my clone is doing its job well enough," Naruto replied enthusiastically. He paused as he passed Karen, placing a hand on her shoulder as if to say that everything would be alright even if he couldn't bring himself to say it at the moment. The contact seemed to be enough for the red-haired Uzumaki, as she briskly began heading towards their first marker, Konoha. The Konoha council chambers were located in a large circular building that mirrored the shape of the room. A large desk at the front was reserved for the Hokage, while the others sat opposite in a semicircular pattern with seats elevated higher the further back from the front they were. It was clear from the size that the room was designed to seat close to 100 shinobi and civilian counselors. At the moment, however, only 15 people sat spread out within the large area. The members all seemed to be sitting in a sort of trance, nobody willing to say anything. Still, it was of no surprise to anyone in the room when the largest man by far stood up. "Yo, the gang's all here, so let's wrap these talks up. Get on with the show, you dig?" Be wrapped terribly. Predictably, it took the rest of the group several seconds to realize just what the Raikage was saying, during which time the last remaining Jinchuriki's bodyguards said with embarrassed expressions on their faces, "Well, I may not have put it so theatrically, but Bidano is right. We have come to an agreement on almost everything that needs to be sorted for this alliance to work. All we really need to do is sign the treaty," Kakashi said with an eye smile. "Well, that's not necessarily true. We haven't decided who will be the official head of the alliance that will deal with most inter-village relations," Kitsuchi said slightly gruffly. His straightforward tone made it clear that he was Oinoki, the former Tsuchikage's son. "I would have thought the choice would be obvious," Kakashi said casually. "Evidently not. Would you please inform us, Hokage-dano?" The Tsuchikage replied. "It should be. The only person I believe is up to the task is Meidano," Kakashi answered. Whatever the room had been expecting, it hadn't been that. Seeing the bemused looks on most of the faces and the appreciating one from the Mizukage, Kakashi decided he needed to elaborate. Of all the current 5 Kage, only Meidano and Garadano served as Kages before the war. It would be irresponsible for one of the new Kage who have not yet had ample experience at managing their own villages to take on the responsibility of managing the alliance. I appreciate your support, Hokage, but as you said, Garadano is just as qualified as I am. Mei said, trying to be as humble as she could. That is not true. While I agree Gara would do a fine job, there will still be a few members of every village that will be concerned over his still young age. I believe he would be a better choice to take over after a few years, with a constant rotation of leaders after a set time of around 2 or 3 years. That way power will be shared between villages equally over time. Kakashi explained. I like it, iron out the details and that deal is the shit. The eccentric Reikage rapped. I also agree that the Hokage system seems to be a viable solution. I also share his sentiment that it would be best for someone slightly older than myself to take on this responsibility first, and I too support Maidano for the role. Gara said in his usual monotone voice. Katsuchi didn't reply. He sat for a few moments weighing up the options. I agree in principle, but before I sign anything I think we should put into place some sort of contingency. Using this system we could all get roped into a war just because one Kage said so. Major issues should require a diplomatic vote between the leaders of each village. That way we are able to reject one leader unfairly favoring their own village over the others. That does seem like a wise precaution to take. Kakashi agreed. But what would come under the reins of a major issue? We can't hold a meeting over every training exercise or shinobi exchange. Mei questioned. Kakashi's head hit the table. He knew that this had just opened us a brand new discussion that would last several hours. His fears were founded as it was not until well into the afternoon before they were ready to officially sign the treaty and make the joint shinobi alliance official. Do simple diplomatic meetings always take that long? Kakashi sighed quietly so that only Tsunade could hear. Tsunade shook her head. No, they usually take much longer. Here you only had to make 5 people happy. Other meetings you have 100 different opinions and none of them will take no for an answer. These talks ran surprisingly smoothly. Normally you can't leave a meeting without having angered someone, Tsunade replied casually as she watched Gara sign on the line reserved for the Kazekage. I'm really going to hate this job. Kakashi sighed. Gara was the last to sign, and with the document now signed the 5 villages were official allies. I am sure we have all had enough of this room for one day. It is probably too late in the day for anyone to leave the village and begin heading back to their respective villages. Perhaps we should all retire and share a drink to celebrate, Tsunade suggested. I don't think anyone would argue against that. A drink would be a good idea right about now. Katsuchi agreed. Slowly they all filed out of the hall and into the village. It had been so early when they entered the council chambers it was only at the crack of dawn. Now the late afternoon had people moving around the village, many finding their ways to bars as they were ending the long day's work. Seems as if we are not the only ones that need a drink, Mei mused with a small smile. Meanwhile, it's getting dark, we should stop here, Naruto said, removing a ceiling scroll and summoning up their tent. Karen didn't respond. She crawled into the tent weakly and into her sleeping bag. Did I do something wrong? He added in thought. I don't think so, she's struggling with the cold. Her body is weak, Kurama answered while Naruto entered the tent, sealing the entrance behind him and wasting no time in setting up the survival heater right next to the kunoichi. Will she be alright? The blonde questioned. It's hard to tell. It has been significantly colder today. Chances are her body has been suffering the effects for a good few hours, Kurama replied. It's been colder? It hasn't felt any different to me, Naruto questioned. Significantly, at least 20 degrees colder since yesterday. To be honest, I am surprised she lasted this long. As for you not feeling anything, that is because of me. Your body is producing more heat to compensate the cold, keeping you safe from the cold. You have been doing it for several days now, Kurama replied. Why didn't she say anything? Naruto asked frantically, swooping down to check on Karen. She was barely conscious as she looked back at the blonde. Her lips were blue and she was shivering uncontrollably. Hey, how are you doing? He asked in a hushed whisper. I am so cold, she stuttered. Well, that isn't good. It looks like she has severe hypothermia. At this rate she will die, the fox said calmly. What do I do? Naruto asked. You have to raise her body temperature, obviously. Her own body isn't producing enough warmth. Naruto sat staring at the red-headed kunoichi worriedly for a few seconds before he made his mind up. He quickly took his jacket and top off. Karen, I know you're cold and weak at the moment, but I need you to take your jacket and shirt off. I have to warm your body, or you are going to die, he said as sternly as he could. He didn't want her to mistake his actions for him being perverted. Karen nodded, obviously understanding Naruto's request. She was too cold to even feel embarrassed at this point. knowing that the best way to get warm would be to use body heat. I really wish this was happening under different circumstances. She thought weakly while slowly pulling her jacket off. Her fingers were cold and numb. She knew that it was only the extra layers of socks and gloves she had been using that had prevented her from getting frostbite already, and the extreme cold of the day had been too much. I need help, she said. Her voice had a clear hint of fear in it. Naruto nodded, kneeling down and grabbing the edge of her sweater top and slowly lifting it over her head. Karen froze the second his hand glanced against her abdomen. Her cold skin tingled and burned with the lightest touch. It said a lot about how bad a shape she was in that she didn't even notice a difference in temperature when her top was missing. Naruto paused for a moment. His mind went blank as he looked at Karen with only a thin bra covering her torso. You know it's not nice to stare. She laughed weakly. Silently, she was rather proud of herself for having that effect on Naruto. Naruto realized what he was doing and quickly turned his face away, waving his hands to apologize. Sorry, I didn't mean to stare. Can you roll over so I can get into your sleeping bag? It's the only way I can get you warm. Karen allowed a small smile and did as she was told. Naruto slid in with his back to Karen and zipped the sleeping bag up. It was a tight, snug fit, but both were just able to fit into the sleeping bag. Karen's skin felt like it was on fire. Naruto's body was so warm. She quickly pressed herself against his back to get closer to the warmth. You're so warm, she said blissfully. For the first time, she was able to realize the position she was in and had decided to make full use of the situation. She slid her arm around Naruto's torso, slowly tracing his well-toned muscles, trying to memorize every inch of his exposed stomach and chest in case she never had this opportunity again. Naruto was doing his best to keep his mind elsewhere, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't help but think about Karen's breasts pressed against his back, how soft her skin felt, and how amazing her hand felt as it seemed to mindlessly explore his exposed flesh. More than that, he wanted to do the same. He wanted their roles to be reversed so he could feel her flesh under his fingers. You know, I gave you one piece of advice on that girl. Do you remember what that was? Kurama asked. Naruto looked around and found himself in front of a familiar set of open gates in a black sewer. It's been a while since you brought me here against my wishes, Naruto said. A necessary precaution. I want to be able to think straight. Kurama replied casually. In any case, you didn't answer my question. You told me lots of things, most of them based out of fear. You still distrust humans, and I can understand why. But Karen is no threat to either of us. Naruto reasoned. She is no threat, I can agree with that. As a matter of fact, she seems quite devoted to you. No, my concern is your devotion to her. She's slowing you down, weakening your resolve, and what's more, you are starting to feel for her. This is not some misguided determination to not lose an ally. You don't want to think about losing her. You would die for her. I can't accept that, Kurama said in a lecturing manner. You're imagining things, Naruto said in denial. I do not imagine, that is a human trait. You enjoy her touching you, fastened, heart rate elevated, endorphin levels. Then again, you are a teenager, your reaction to the opposite sex is only natural. Kurama scoffed. Ah, stop talking, you damn perverted fox. Naruto yelled back. He was not angry with the Bijuu, just opposed to the accusation. Another human quality. I am not perverted because I have no need to procreate. You, however, do. Your so-called perverted sensei was open about the fact he was perverted, but in truth he just embraced a basic human nature. Regardless, this is a pointless topic to discuss as it has no importance for either of us right now. What is important is the distance that you have now traveled, Kurama replied. I don't get it. What's so important about that? Naruto asked. Kurama shook his head at his slow Jinchuriki. You and the girl have gone far enough away from the elemental nations to be able to freely use my chakra without it being felt. If you carry the girl, then you will be able to cover more ground in an hour than you would have covered in several days. We will be off this mountain in no time. So congratulations are in order. It seems you will be the first man to cross the so-called insurmountable peaks. Maybe a change in name is in order, so I just carry Karen the rest of the way, and we can be free of this place for good? Naruto said, thinking it sounded too good to be true. That's right. With your heightened speed, reflexes, and strength, it will be a breeze getting off the side of this mountain, Kurama reiterated. The blonde looked ready to jump for joy from the news. He was scared that using his Bijuu cloak would give his position away to IWA. I should go tell Karen. This is amazing news. Sure, go tell her. It seems she is starting to recover from the cold anyway. Your extra body warmth seems to have saved her, the fox said with an evident lack of interest. The next second, Naruto found himself back in the real world. Karen was still tightly clinging to his back tightly, but she was no longer shivering and some color had come back to her lips. "Hey, how you feeling?" he asked. Karen gave a small contented groan in response. "Much better, you're like the world's best eater. I could stay like this forever," she said eventually. Naruto had only at this point noticed that the last shreds of color had faded from the sky. "Well, do you want something to eat? I have some good news. As long as you stay where you are and don't leave me, then I guess I could eat." Karen mused. She was still a little weak from the cold, so she knew how important having something to eat would be to regain her strength. That said, she was enjoying her skin-to-skin contact with Naruto far too much to let him get away that easily. "Well, it's gonna be hard to prepare something to eat if I can't move," Naruto said. "Well, you really are an idiot when it has nothing to do with ninja stuff, aren't you? Use a clone. You use them to carry my bags and to mark out a path for us, yet you can't create one to make us something to eat so we can stay wrapped up and let me keep you here with me, keeping me warm," Karen replied, tightening her grip around Naruto's shoulder to demand that he stay put. "Alright, but you're going to have to let me get my arm free when it's time to eat," Naruto replied. "No promises," Karen teased back. "Then it seems that I am at a disadvantage. You will just have to feed me then," Naruto declared, creating a clone without any hand seals to make a quick run to his backpack, collecting 2 cups of ramen as well as a small stove and, much to Karen's surprise, another emergency heater. "What's that for?" "We have to ration them. I am fine now, honestly, we don't need to use it. Although if you want to do this more often, then you hardly need an excuse. You're so warm I don't think I will argue too much," she remarked. Having not recovered fully from the hypothermia, she had reverted somewhat to her fangirl state, fawning over her crush. "Well, I told you that I had good news. Tomorrow we will cover more ground than we have since we left the land of Earth. I'm going to use my Bijuu cloak to get us off this mountain. If there is an end to these mountains, we will find it tomorrow, not a day too soon if you asked me. It must be heading into winter judging by how cold today was," Naruto said with a happy smile. Karen could hardly believe her ears. The last few weeks seemed to go on, each day just like the last, a sea of flat white that stretched on forever. "So let me guess, you're going to carry me, huh? Will you hold me like a princess?" she joked. "Well, that would be the easiest way to carry you," Naruto replied in a thoughtful tone, clearly oblivious to her flirting. It had been 3 minutes. Naruto hated that time limit. It was the time it took to make his precious ramen. Naruto's clone handed them both a cup each and dispelled. "Ah, the feast is served. I really hope we can find some better food once we get somewhere warmer," Karen said, reluctantly removing her arm from around the half-naked blonde. She immediately regretted the action when she reached out of the covers. Naruto had made her forget just how unbearably cold it was, though the second heater was helping. They both ate quickly and in silence. Talking meant time spent outside the safety and comfort of their sleeping bag. Laying back down, the only sound was the faint hiss of the wind as it hit the tent, dusting snow over the top. "I am really looking forward to this being over," Naruto thought while Karen was still preoccupied with the last of her ramen. "Really? So you're not looking forward to her finishing that cup of ramen and pulling you close again? I know you liked it before." The QB scoffed. Naruto blushed and was quite thankful Karen was still busy eating to notice. "I did not, Erokitsune," he thought back half-heartedly. He knew there was no real point in denying anything to the best empath that existed. "Oh please, even if I wasn't sealed inside of you I could tell, it's obvious," Kurama replied, ignoring the rather poorly thought-out insult hurled his way. Naruto's response was to remain silent, rolling to face away from Karen in an act of defiance. It may have worked had that not been the moment said redhead had finished eating. "You don't have to look away, you know. Apart from the dull light from the heaters, it's completely dark in here so you can't see anything. Besides, I'm still wearing a bra and long pants. It's not like I'm naked," she said, turning to face the blonde, carefully positioning herself so he would get a decent view of her cleavage when he turned his head. "Although I wouldn't mind if I was naked, as long as he was too, that is." Naruto rolled back and his mind stalled when he saw her. Her messy hair cascading around her shoulders and down to her ample chest as she leaned slightly over him. The way her face held both uncertainty and a hint of something Naruto couldn't recognize seemed to almost hypnotize him for a few seconds. Not it's just that I want to get some sleep, big day tomorrow so I should rest up," he rambled, struggling to get his mind back into working order. He faintly heard a disapproving mumble in the back of his mind and didn't need telling to know what it was about, but he chose to ignore it. "Maybe I really should just get some sleep," he thought while rolling back over. Karen let out a small, almost inaudible sigh of disappointment before laying down as well and pulling her favorite heater tightly against her. She felt him tense up immediately but didn't struggle. "I'm still cold. it will be warmer for us both like this. She informed him. Well, you are a lot warmer now than you were before. I guess we can stay like this. Good night, Karen. Naruto replied. Good night, Naruto-kun. Naruto closed his eyes with a smile, knowing that tomorrow would be a good day. He fell asleep before Karen. She could tell by his very light snoring. It was nothing annoying, in fact she found it calming. Like a lullaby inviting her to join him in slumber. Hello, Karen. A bodiless voice called out. The redhead looked around frantically for the source of the voice. She seemed to be standing on a smooth stone surface in an area that was surrounded by mist. The voice called out to her again, more forceful this time. Something about it sounded so familiar to the teenager that she took a few steps forward. Naruto-kun? She asked, a hint of fear in her voice. You forget me so soon? I guess you have a new target for your affections now, don't you? I wouldn't get you hopes up. He's a failure. All he knows how to do is hurt the ones he loves. The voice replied. Sasuke? She asked, this time definitely frightened. Bingo. But wasn't I always Sasuke-kun, the subject of your undying devotion? The voice replied. Slowly a section of the mist cleared and Sasuke stood in front of her. His body was beaten and broken, and his shirt torn from where Naruto's Rasengan crushed his chest, the final blow that killed him. This is the result of what Naruto did to me. He killed the man you love, and you do nothing about it. Sasuke spat scathingly. I don't love you anymore. This is a dream. Karen replied aggressively. Then why am I here? Why do I occupy your dreams and not the dobe? He's your new love, that is, until you find someone more of a fit. Face it, Karen, he's not right for you. He's the class idiot, the pet of the Hokage, nothing more. Sasuke scoffed. He saved me. He's kinda better man that ever were. Karen stuttered. He may be, but that's not what you want. You want to be back with me, begging for my attention, drowning in a feeling of accomplishment when I gave you the slightest bit. You're a pathetic open book, Karen. You want me to hurt you again, because even being on the receiving end of my anger is still a form of attention, Sasuke said with a sickly taunting voice. He slowly approached Karen, walking around her. Slowly he traced his hand along her shoulder and up to her cheek. In the blink of an eye she shivered and smacked his hand away, but he just moved closer. Get away from me, she demanded. He did no such thing. Instead he leaned in to whisper into her ear. It's all right, this is your dream, so you can have me. Every desire you have ever had will come true. I'll even clean myself up for you. When he pulled back, his face was immaculate, as flawless as she remembered. You want me to hurt you again, don't you? He asked with a smirk. I could give you another one of these? He said, running the tips of his fingers along her skin to the site of the wound he had given her with his Chidori. That was the final straw. A kunai appeared in her hand and she lashed out, stabbing Sasuke. Get out of my dreams, I don't love you anymore. I want you to leave me alone, I love someone else now. She screamed. Suddenly Sasuke vanished, and she was alone again. Karen, are you alright? She recognized that voice. It was Naruto's. She instantly jumped to her feet. Wake up, the voice said urgently. The world around her became white, and she soon found herself back in the tent with a very worried Naruto leaning over her. Oh, thank Kami, you were having a bad dream. For a moment there I was worried it might have been something to do with being so cold earlier. Karen looked back into his worried eyes. She quickly moved, embracing the blonde as her eyes began to water. I dreamt about Sasuke again, she cried lightly. It's alright, you're fine now, Naruto replied. Karen clung on to Naruto like he was the last life raft on a sinking ship. Naruto-kun, don't leave me, please, I need you, she begged. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere, I promise, he replied, lightly rubbing her back in an attempt to calm her. They stayed together in a close embrace until Naruto could hear the light sounds of her breath as it brushed against his skin. Sweet dreams, Karen-chan. Chapter 21. The Other Side. The first flash of light crossed the sky, signaling dawn over the mountainous plateau that had become the home of two weary travelers. They both still slept, escaping the blistering cold in each other's warmth. The two teens lay in a single sleeping bag, their legs tangled together, while the young kunoichi held blonde tightly as if her life depended on it, mostly because it did. This was the scene that Karen woke to. She was half sprawled across Naruto's torso, using his chest as a pillow. A quick blush formed when she realized that neither of them had anything on above the waist, apart from her thin bra. She regained her senses a few seconds later, as she remembered why they were in that position. Still, I may as well make the most of the situation while I can. I may not get another chance like this again. I should enjoy it while I can. He's so warm, she thought, snuggling closer into Naruto's chest before falling back to sleep. Normally this would have been enough in itself to wake the blonde. However, he had been awake late into the night training and conversing with Kurama, the third and only intangible member of the small traveling party. The giant fox wanted to make sure that Naruto had not become rusty in the weeks of traveling, so he waited until Karen had fallen asleep before entering his seal. While he was unable to train his body, mental strain can be even more exhausting. As such, it was around an hour later that he was finally roused from his slumber. The first thing Naruto had noticed upon waking was the extra weight spread across his chest. It appeared that both teens moved around a bit in their sleep. Looking down, he saw the top of Karen's blood-red hair, and felt the warmth of her breath as it flicked across his skin. She seemed so peaceful, he thought. He quickly suppressed the sudden urge to run his hands through her hair. The position they were in was compromising enough. He was already sure that had it been Sakura, he would have been hurt severely for waking up like this. "You're staring," Kurama interjected with thinly veiled disappointment. Naruto immediately blushed and looked away. "I was not." He denied, knowing full well that it was impossible to actually lie to the fox. "The fact that you are even attempting to deny something like that to me proves that you were. It is going to be a big day. I hope you won't be distracted when it's important. Not get up and get dressed, you're wasting daylight." "Fine." He sighed out loud and began attempting to wriggle free of the kunoichi's grasp, a harder task than he realized. Karen didn't want to let go of her main source of warmth, so it was no real surprise that he failed in escaping without waking the sleeping redhead. Naruto froze as she groaned and rubbed her eyes. "Morning," she sleepily greeted while not moving from his chest. Naruto blinked a few times. The yell of anger and severe beating he was expecting didn't come. He slowly released a breath that he didn't recall holding. "I keep forgetting that she's nothing like Sakura. A good morning, Karen-chan. Sorry about this," he said hesitantly. "Sorry about what?" she asked, still not moving. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck and blushed lightly in embarrassment. "The position we're in. You don't need to apologize. If anything, I should be the one apologizing. I must have rolled over in my sleep to get warmer. You know, you're actually quite comfortable," she replied. Thanks, I guess. But we should get out of bed. If we're lucky, I can get us off these mountains by the time the day is out," he said with a large grin. "Well, I'm all for getting somewhere warmer. Can you find my jacket and glasses?" "I'm not really wearing anything at the moment," she asked, turning her head slightly to look up at the blonde. "Yes, sure, I find your clothes. But first, can you let go of me? I can't get out of the sleeping bag like this," Naruto replied. "Oh, sorry," Karen said before removing her arms from around Naruto's bare torso. Once he had left the sleeping bag, Karen instantly felt a good deal colder. Once Naruto had retrieved her clothes, she quickly got dressed and began packing up while Naruto boiled some water breakfast. It was nothing appetizing as far as she was concerned, just powdered soup, but the thought of finally being free of the cold and getting off the mountains made it taste that much better. "I'm really looking forward to having a proper bath again, or a shower. Kami, I hope wherever we go has showers," she said, happily digging into her small bowl of soup. Naruto chuckled and nodded his agreement. "I just hope they have heard of ramen. I don't know how long I could last without it." Karen gave the blonde a quizzical look, stunned at the simplicity of his wish. "You have been eating ramen every other day since we have been traveling together. Don't you ever get sick of it? That's like asking if the sun gets sick of rising every morning," Naruto replied indignantly. "That's a little extreme, don't you think?" she deadpanned. After a predictably long-winded explanation of why ramen was supposedly far superior to other foods, the pair packed away the tent and stood on the barren snow-covered landscape. Karen had seen Naruto's transformation once before, but that didn't change the feeling of raw power that exploded outwards as he entered his fox cloak. "You ready?" Naruto asked. Karen nodded hesitantly but jumped in surprise as two large claws of chakra gently picked her up off her feet and wrapped themselves protectively around the kunoichi while holding her close. "This feels really weird," she admitted while bringing broth into Naruto's chest. Naruto chuckled and rubbed the back of his neck in a boyish manner that seemed to signify the blonde's charm and appeal, at least in Karen's mind. "I guess it would be. Then this will feel even weirder. You might want to hang on." She didn't get to finish speaking as Naruto took off. She let out a rather undignified scream as the world turned into a blur of white against a blue sky. Instinctively, she latched onto the closest solid object, which of course was Naruto, bathed in golden chakra that was so potent it expelled from his very skin like flames. All that could be heard was Naruto laughing as every minute that passed they traveled the same distance that would normally take several hours. It was exhilarating to finally be free to use his chakra again. Each time his foot hit the ground, he tried to better the distance from the last, pushing himself harder. 30 minutes passed, and much to Karen's surprise they came to a stop. What's going on? She asked, not yet prepared to remove her head from the safety of Naruto's chest. Look at this. Naruto gasped in awe. Slowly the redhead agreed, and the sight was truly amazing. They had reached the end of the plateau. Before them was several mountains that were spread across the landscape that was steadily descending. Clouds gathered around the peaks, letting the sun shine in between them, almost inviting the travelers to continue their journey along those paths. Amazing. She finally agreed. This is it. I can feel it. Naruto beamed. You ready? Wait a sec, you scared me half to death last time. She replied, repositioning herself with her arms wrapped around his chest and neck. Alright, go. Naruto didn't need any more encouragement. He pushed off, jumping as far forward in one leap as he could before kicking on. From atop their lookout, the path that Naruto mapped out seemed to be smooth and easy to travel. In reality, it was anything but. Large ridges and flat drops meant that Naruto had to regularly change direction or hop over or around obstacles. Still, he was making great time. It was still morning, and they had traveled further than they could have hoped to travel in a week, even if he had been slowed somewhat by difficult terrain. For Karen, the day was boring. Naruto couldn't really talk much, having to navigate at high speeds. She was also not used to the sensation of traveling so fast, meaning she found it difficult to speak anyway. She had attempted to close her eyes and get some sleep, but the movement was far too erratic. It was like this that they spent the next few hours. It was complete silence, with what looked like a yellow blur darting across the landscape, barely visible to the eye. It wasn't until the mid-afternoon that Naruto slowed down. He let his fox cloak fade away and finally come to a stop. Are you alright? Karen asked, a little worried, yet just a little tired. Kurama needs to gather more chakra, but that's not why I stopped. Naruto answered honestly. Then why? I think we are almost to the other side. If anyone there can sense chakra, I don't really want them to think we're a threat. Naruto reasoned. I guess that makes sense. But how can you be so sure we're almost at the other side? She pressed. We passed a small crop of trees just before, then there is that. Naruto said, pointing to a nearby hill. Karen squinted to see what he was talking about, readjusting her glasses just to be sure. She paused for a few moments, not seeing anything, until there was a flash of movement, a small snow-white rabbit. She could just make out its shape and the glint of a red eye against the backdrop. That is the first animal, apart from the snow leopards, that we have seen since the day we left that outpost at the edge of the land of Earth. This has to be the end to it. Naruto said, panting lightly. He had used a mammoth amount of chakra, even if it had been Kurama's. Karen couldn't help but agree. A giddy sense of excitement filled her. We did it, she said, almost unbelieving the words. Yeah, we did. Still, the work isn't done yet. We still have a short way go yet, but the terrain has been getting much easier to travel this last hour. Naruto said, the sense of accomplishment making his voice fill with pride. I can start using my mind's eye to look for a village, or at least somewhere with people. Karen replied with barely contained excitement. Good idea. But don't waste your chakra yet. There is still a few hours before we need to start searching for a place to stay for the night. Naruto replied. Karen nodded in agreement, and the pair began traveling again. They were far slower, but in high spirits. Despite Naruto's recommendation, Karen began scanning for human chakra signatures every couple of miles without any luck. On the plus side, the snow was slowly getting thinner on the ground, and there were small areas where grass could clearly be seen. Patches of tall evergreen trees started appearing, towering far higher than any of those found in the forests of the Land of Fire. They're too tall and thin to use for tree jumping, Naruto assessed while passing through a particularly large patch. As they continued north, they soon found themselves in a forest of these trees. Snow still covered the ground, preventing smaller vegetation from thriving, but there was the odd small shrub here or there that somehow survived the still freezing temperatures. Still nothing. I hoped we would have found something by now. We only have a few hours left to find a decent place to stay before we're sleeping in a tent again. Karen sighed. Well, there is no telling if there is anyone living on this side of the mountains. Maybe we should just keep going until we find somewhere warm. Naruto replied. I agree, but I would settle for a tiny mountain village where we can rest for the night. Karen said, dreaming of a peaceful town filled with welcoming people. Sadly, for that night at least, it was not meant to be. As the sun began to set, Naruto unsealed the tent for the night. She tried one more time, hoping to find somewhere better to rest, but to no avail. The next day followed the same pattern, again with no signs of civilization. It was starting to get a little warmer, however. Small bushes and a larger variety of animals were becoming noticeable. By the third day, the mountains really seemed to be far away. They could still see the peaks in the distance so long as they were really looking for them. The forest they were in was now full of life. Birds chirped away in the trees while the ground that was once covered in nothing but snow and a few shrubs was now filled with different types of plants and flowers. It seemed like the only type of life that was missing were humans. At midday of the third day, they finally came to a break in the forest. A large river 15 foot wide that seemed to go on for an eternity stretched out in front of them. "Wow, I wonder where this comes from," Naruto said, bending down to test the water to see if it was drinkable. They had not been able to refill their water supply since the snow had dried up, and as it was rather humid traveling in the forest, a source of fresh drinking water was more than welcome. "It's freezing," he yelped, withdrawing his hand from the water almost at the exact moment he placed it in. "Really?" Karen asked, removing an empty flask and collecting a decent amount of the water before taking a sip. "It's fresh. The source must be up in the mountains. My guess would be a glacier. The water travels so quickly that it has no chance to warm up." "Well, let's fill up all our flasks then. No telling when we're going to need them again," Naruto said, quickly getting to work. "Actually, we should just follow the river downstream. This water has to be going somewhere. If there are really people in this land, then it would make sense that they would build near a major source of water like this one," Karen suggested. "That's a great idea. If we follow this, we will be bound to find fine people. If not, I guess it will lead out to an ocean, and then we can decide what to do from there," Naruto replied, still filling the bottles. They were both slightly disheartened as the day began to draw to a close, still no signs of life. "Let's stop here for the night," Naruto said, slowly walking over to the closest bank of the river. There was a small clearing, only just large enough for him to unseal the tent and drop the bags down beside it. "I thought it would be easier than this," he sighed, kneeling down at the side of the tent. "Well, at least we don't have to fear being frozen to death anymore. Besides, it's not like there is no food. We can survive out here, even if we don't find anyone else," Karen said, trying to raise the Jinchuriki's spirits. "Yeah, and at least we have each other. I'm really glad you came with me," Naruto said with a weak smile. Karen blushed lightly but remained composed. "So am I." Naruto hopped back up to his feet. "All right, no sense in sitting around sulking. I'll go hunt something for dinner." "Do you want some help?" Karen asked. "No, that's all right. You can relax for a while. I'll be back soon," Naruto replied. "It will be easier for you to hunt in sage mode," Kurama pointed out. Naruto readily agreed, began focusing his chakra. A minute later and the pigment around his eyes darkened. This won't be hard at all, Naruto realized happily. He could now easily sense all the lifeforms around him. He immediately raced off in the direction of the closest animal that seemed to be decent in size. Using the tree's tops to hide his scent and remain silent, he found a small deer that was lightly limping through the forest. "It's injured already. Well, then this should be an easy kill," Kurama spoke. Naruto nodded, but he still hesitated for a few moments. It was really too much for the two of them to share. "Don't tell me you are thinking of letting it go. It's hurt already. It would be kinder to put it out of its misery. It's exhausted. Looks like it's been running for hours. If you don't want to kill it, you could always just wait a few hours for it to collapse in exhaustion, then some other predator will do the deed." Naruto needed no more encouragement. He jumped from the tree, blade in hand, and impaled the deer clean through the heart. Thanks to his sage mode, he could tell that the kill was instantaneous. He slowly stood up and began inspecting the animal. That's when he noticed a small blade attached to a thin piece of broken wood that had dug into its back right leg. He removed the blade before skinning the animal. Meanwhile, Karen had been occupying herself, first by starting a small fire, and then by creating a makeshift shower out of a bucket with a few holes, a waterproof cloth, and some heavy-duty rope to control the water flow. The last few weeks she and Naruto had been cleaning themselves in a tiny wash basin with a rag, so the feeling of having hot water freely cascade down her back was amazing, even if it meant having to start a fire to heat the water and waiting for it to reach an acceptable temperature. Once finished, she wrapped a towel around her chest and ties her hair back into a ponytail before returning to their campsite. "It's nice out. I think I can stop wearing all that thick wintry stuff," she said to herself, while rummaging through her bag to find a change of clothes. She was now comfortable enough around Naruto that she didn't really care if he saw her dressed only in a towel. She was actually a little disappointed when that did not happen. She pulled on a black t-shirt that came down to just above her navel and some comfortable track pants. She had been tempted to go for something a little more enticing but decided to go for practical, at least for now. Karen took a seat at the side of the small fire and waited for Naruto to return. She was not waiting long. He entered the clearing a few minutes later, a small amount of blood on his jacket. "I take it by your appearance that everything went well?" she questioned. "Yeah, I got us enough food to last a month. I sealed it away to keep it fresh. Naruto admitted, showing her a food storage seal. I did find something interesting though. What do you make of this? He said, tossing the small blade he removed from the deer to the kunoichi. Karen's eyes widened. Where did you find this? She asked urgently. It was stuck in the leg of the deer I killed. It wasn't in very deep. Why, what is it? Naruto replied. It's an arrowhead. Civilian hunters use them with bows to fire these projectiles a long distance. Shinobi don't use them often as the strength and velocity of the arrow is dependent on the pressure in the string and size of the bow. Most shinobi can produce more force by simply throwing a kunai. Karen explained. So basically you're saying that there are people around here? Naruto replied, not fully following her explanation. Exactly, if the arrow didn't get far, and then it's possible that it was able to escape and ran a good distance before you found it. But it means that we are at least not alone here. Karen said happily. Alright, that's awesome news. We just need to keep searching and we'll find them, I'm sure of it. Naruto beamed. Well, we can do that tomorrow. For now, how about I cook us something for dinner, while you go get washed up? I made a makeshift shower just behind those trees over there. Karen reasoned while pointing Naruto in the right direction. Wow, you're amazing, Karen. How did you do that? Naruto asked, clearly impressed. I was a scientist. Something like that is no big deal. Now go, and take off that jacket, it's covered in blood. She ordered. Naruto nodded and did as he was told. When he came back, he wore a black sweater and a pair of black pants. Aren't you a little hot in that? Karen questioned. Well, I guess so, but I didn't buy anything other than winter clothing for the journey. He admitted. That's right, you can be very stupid when it comes to being properly prepared. What if we had come out of the mountains to somewhere incredibly hot? Karen teased lightheartedly. I would have thought of something. Naruto replied with a small laugh. Greatly encouraged by the news that they were not the only people on this side of the insurmountable peaks, Naruto and Karen spent most of the night happily conversing and joking. Karen had attempted to flirt only to find Naruto to be quite dense. Today turned out to be a good day in the end. He thought when he retired for the night. If you say so, but just because you found evidence of humans, doesn't mean that they will be at all welcoming. Kurama pointed out. Still, we have to try. It would be nice if Karen and I found a place to live. Karen as well, do you plan on spending your life with that woman? The fox questioned. The question seemed to stump Naruto. He just didn't know how to answer it. He had not considered the possibility that Karen would want to go off on her own once they were safe and settled. The thought did not go down well. He didn't want her to leave, he wanted to stay together. The lack of an answer was enough for the fox. Just get some rest, Naruto. I doubt you have anything to worry about. He sighed. Naruto didn't really understand what Kurama meant but did as the large fox suggested. He was quite tired from the long day's work. The next day started as the last few had begun. Naruto and Karen packed up and sealed away their tent before having a quick breakfast. Which way should we go today? Do you still think we should follow the water? It might be a good idea to try and follow the path that the deer that I killed yesterday took. It had been in contact with someone, so it might lead us in the right direction. Naruto asked once they were ready to set out. Karen paused, thinking about the figurative fork in the road they had reached. I don't know, it's hard to tell. Both have a bit of a risk, she admitted while casting fleeting glances in both directions. I still think that we will likely run into a village along this river. Why not send a clone to trace the deer's path, while we follow the river? First one to civilization wins, she finally suggested. Good idea, Naruto said, creating a clone that immediately took off into the bush, already knowing its purpose. Come on, let's go. I have a good feeling about today. His enthusiasm was infecting. Karen couldn't help but smile back. The two teens ran off down the river, making good time by walking on the surface of the water. As they walked, the forest around them seemed to change with them, becoming more sparse with a few areas of small fields occupied by nothing but a few wandering animals or low-level plants. Naruto paid them no mind, but Karen knew that this was signs of farmland. It was small in size, but evidence nonetheless. These sites haven't been used in a while, perhaps they found new areas that were more productive, she thought as they passed another one of the open areas. The other option was far less of an appealing thought, that whoever had been caring for these fields had been wiped out. Finally Naruto spotted something, a small boat sitting empty that was tied up to a pillar sticking out of the water. Hey, check this out, Naruto said, a little hushed while pointing ahead towards his discovery. We don't know if they can use chakra, so let's approach from land. We wouldn't want to appear threatening, Karen suggested. They approached slowly, and eventually came to an old village that looked so dilapidated and run down that most of the buildings had tarp covering the roof to keep rain out. Each building was made with wood, and small wooden trails connected separate areas of the village. In what looked like the center of the village there was a large fire pit, and the many small wood-burning lanterns suggested that the village had no electricity. Despite how primitive the place seemed, their first sight of the occupants changed their mind. A small child ran out of a run-down shack in brightly colored shorts and a t-shirt, but what gave it away was a flashing red light on a digital watch. Several more children followed soon after, running out into the street laughing happily. Naruto smiled and took a few steps forward out of the forest. The moment he appeared, everyone froze. Hi, Naruto said hesitantly. Nobody answered for a few moments. The children looked somewhat scared of the new arrivals. Naruto was about to speak again to assure them that he meant no harm when 4 men came bursting out of the same building. Who are you and what are you doing here? The tallest member for the 4 asked. Naruto could tell he was trying to be authoritative yet seemed genuinely afraid at the same time. He was around 6 foot tall and had curly black hair that formed an afro. Naruto smiled. I'm Naruto and this is Karen-chan. We aren't here to hurt you. Really, we're just looking for a new place to live. I guess we're explorers, he said. What do you think? One of the other men asked. The man with the afro stood for a few moments in deep thought. Eventually he let out a sigh and lowered his guard. If they were bandits they would be better armed, and they don't wear the crest of the empire, so I don't think they are military, he mused. He turned his attention back to the shinobi. I am Cho Fujika. I guess I am the leader of this village, at least what is left of it. I am afraid we are not accustomed to friendly visitors here, so please forgive our mistrust. That's alright. To be honest, I am just thrilled to see people, Naruto replied with a small laugh. You sound like you have come a long way. Where are you from? Cho asked calmly. He did not yet trust the new arrivals, far from it. Well, I guess we came from the south over the mountains, Naruto said hesitantly. He had clearly said something that struck a nerve with the townspeople. Those mountains are cursed. Nothing good could come from there, Cho said, the tone of his voice icy. As you have come a long way, you may stay for the night, but in the morning you must leave. There's a road at the edge of town that will take you to a larger town, but it would be wise not to mention those mountains again. Having them here is dangerous, Cho-sama. We should make them leave immediately. A veiled man in his 30s said urgently. We will not turn away guests that mean us no harm. These 2 will stay for 1 night and then leave. I trust you will accept my conditions, Cho replied, turning to Naruto for an answer. Sure, we don't mean to intrude, but why are you so concerned that we came from the other side of the mountains? Naruto asked. We do not talk about it. The topic is taboo. I get the feeling that there is much you will need to learn about this place. Come with me, Cho said and turned, beckoning Naruto and Karen to follow. The 2 teens looked at each other before admitting that learning more about this land would be helpful, so they readily agreed to follow the village leader. At closer inspection, the village was really in bad shape. Doors had been broken and windows smashed. It looked as if it had been a war zone. What happened here? Naruto eventually asked, unable to stand how run down everything was. Many compounded problems have left our village in this state, none of which are worth the risk of revealing. If you came to this land searching for salvation, then I fear you would be better off turning around and heading back to your home, Cho said while entering what was by far the largest building in the village, although it was really no bigger than an average 2-bedroom home in Konoha. You said that you were part of some empire. Couldn't they help you out? Karen asked curiously. Cho let out a humorless laugh. They would not raise a finger to help us. In the outer sections of the empire are basically lawless. You would be lucky to see 1 military patrol a year come through this sector. The closer you get to the capital, the more money is spent and the safer it is, Cho explained. So they just let you fend for yourselves? Naruto asked, clearly upset about the standard of living. Not as such. The empire hire private contractors to keep order, Cho replied in a tone that clearly said that he did not want to delve any deeper into this topic. There has to be something you can do about this, Karen said firmly. It does not pay to make waves. We work hard so that our family might one day move out of this section into a richer one. But to be allowed into villages of higher standing, you need to have the right symbols of stature. Because of this, criminals and those that upset the empire are sent out here to live, and it can take generations to return. My grandfather spoke out against the emperor and was sent here with his family, Cho explained. That's why the village is in such disrepair, yet some of the children have expensive clothing and watches, Karen surmised. Precisely, it's to help our next generation survive, Cho said. But wouldn't it be better to just improve this area and make it a better place to live? Naruto asked. The more time you spend here, the more you will see that way is impossible, Cho replied. How long has this been going on? Karen asked. A little over 100 years ago this was a thriving village, and was part of the southern country, one of 4 separate nations that held power over what is now the empire. But when the first emperor appeared, he conquered each nation one by one. Then he initiated this class system in order to maintain control of the population. His family has been in control and expanding ever since. They say that nobody has ever survived an encounter with a member of the royal family. Cho replied, "Wow, they sound really strong." Naruto replied with a low whistle. Suddenly there was a loud bang and bursts of flames sent an orange glow over the tiny village. "It appears that bandits have come in search of items of value. Please wait here, I need to attempt to send them away," Cho declared, walking out of the room on shaking legs. "Stay hidden, it's for your own safety," he warned before disappearing. Karen and Naruto sat in silence for a few minutes before Naruto got to his feet and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Karen asked in a hushed voice. "I need to know what's going on. Someone is terrorizing these people and I can't let that happen," Naruto replied. "But you heard him. It's dangerous, you could end up doing more harm than good." Karen replied. Truth was, she was a little scared. She had never been the best at combat. In fact, if she was honest in a fight, she was little better than a genin. "I know that. But I can't just sit by and do nothing. If they are in trouble, I need to help them," Naruto said. Karen sighed with a smile. This was just who Naruto was, she realized. Someone that will always do what he thinks is the right thing no matter what. "Maybe that's why I like you so much," she thought while getting to her feet. "If you're going, then so am I. We're a team. Besides, you already promised you wouldn't leave me,"